demand. We've modeled that as well. Exponential rise in charging demand for different use cases. In the Middle East, we see that public charging demand is going to go up by factor 10 between now and 35. And then non-public, which is the use case of charging at home, charging at work, going to go up by almost factor 20 over the next 10 years or so. So huge opportunity and need for charging infrastructure at the right location, at the right capacity, with the right charging speeds, with the right user experience. So again, great value pools which you can then satisfy and build your business models on. Now, let's talk about charging for a moment. What makes charging so important? You know, what is this business about? For me, charging is a technology and real estate business, and real estate means location, location, location. Life shouldn't have to follow charging. Charging has to follow life. And I very often hear people say, well, charging should just become as easy as refueling your car. Well, I disagree. I absolutely disagree. Because me going to the charge point or me going to the fuel station is unproductive time. It doesn't add any value to my life. Charging has to become an omnipresent parallel process to our daily routine, be it at the mall, when we're here in our conference center, in the hotel, at work, everywhere we go. And this is also what will drive the attractiveness of electric mobility for the user, which will drive its adoption, reach critical mass, economies of scale, and therefore make it attractive not only for the users, but also for you as investors. Talking about investors, over $12 trillion in revenue opportunities between now and 2030. Great opportunities that are out there. I'm not going to go into all these things in detail, but very happy to talk about these value pools with you afterwards in the breakouts. But really massive opportunities for investors driven by new technologies that we see across the board. There is massive disruption. I mentioned it earlier already. We have a lot of new technologies, and these are available, and the users want them, and they will also change the way we move, and we already see that now, right? Now, when we talk about how technologies disrupt, we also have to think how the ecosystem is disrupted, because what we really see is that mobility no longer is something where you can think in silos. Mobility completely changes the way the ecosystem works, moving away from linear value chains to an interconnected ecosystem of value chains where data, where capital, where business model are interconnected and flow multidirectionally. So we have different versions of that. They are much more complicated because we have modeled all the capital flows over the next years amongst all these different elements. This is where you will be able to identify your value pools. Very happy to talk about that. And where you want to think about where do I want to possibly form new partnerships. So, talking about partnerships, and I'm coming to the conclusion slowly. This is you. I would claim that all of your sectors, or let's say all of these sectors are actually represented in this audience of the fair. We heard it yesterday, electric mobility is no longer an automotive play. It's automotive, it's energy, it's retail, it's real estate, it's government, it's infrastructure, it's everything, and all these sectors work together. And we see, based on this ecosystem chart that I just showed you, that the barriers to entry to enter this model have completely changed. They're much lower. So we see lots of very agile and aggressive tech companies coming and entering the space. And I want to remind you of a little startup, and that startup might possibly also be present in this room today. Have you heard of Tesla? Yeah? When Elon Musk would come to the boardrooms 15 years ago to try to raise capital for Tesla, well, people said, well, crazy guy wants to build electric cars. Don't take him serious, not going to happen. Guess what? He has set new standards, and the world is trying to play catch up with him. So you see how fast the world is changing, and incumbents have to remain agile and competitive to stay ahead of the game. And that's painful sometimes and takes effort, but it's possible. And we can build great business models like others in the industry have already showed us. So, lots of disruption, great challenges, great opportunities out there, and great value. It's been a pleasure meeting you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Heiko. Fantastic. Pop it on there. Again, you're curious, you'd like to know more, you'd like to know more, a little bit more about what was shared there, or just a conversation with the speaker there. Again, our speaker's here. Heiko's here all day. You're here all day, aren't you, Heiko? You're here all day. You're here all day today. Absolutely. So you can grab a coffee with him, have a chat, and take that conversation forward with, again, not with everybody else, but the other speakers that you hear today and yesterday as well. Again, reach out to them straight after, have a chat, have a conversation, and see where those conversations move forward. Again, just to remind you, again, so much going on here in this area here on the stage right now today, but also naturally so much going on your left over there on my right. So in the exhibition hall, lots of sponsors, lots of exhibitors, solutions, ideas. But out in the other area outside, you'll see naturally the test drive area. I think we have about 5 or 6 different companies where you can do them all today if you want to as well. 5 or 6. You can test drive a car, you can test drive not a bus, but you can test drive a motorcycle. You can do that. You don't even have to stay here at all. You can do that outside, probably not all day, but you can certainly do that and really pit your wits maybe against others and just have a feel and flavor of what these test drives are all about. Let's move on. Right, so electrifying different types of transport, electrifying bikes, trucks, trains even, okay? But which of these modes of transport, which is the right type of electrification? Which of these, what are the answers to this in this next panel discussion, in this next debate here on stage? Hopefully will give us a kind of a perspective to maybe rethink on the way forward on this. I'm intrigued as much as you are really to hear some of the answers to these questions as well. Please welcome to the stage the moderator who's going to shape this conversation in the right way forward. Please welcome Director of Frost & Sullivan, Mr. Vitaly Bielski.
Thank you, Peter, for setting up the scene, and it's my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited about the next panel, and I'm going to explain why. If you were here yesterday, then you might have noticed that the topic of the discussion was more about passenger cars and light vehicles. So today, we're going to be focusing on something different. We are going to be focusing on everything else outside of the light vehicles, and mainly passenger cars and light commercial vehicles. It's a very interesting topic. I think most of the people who work in the truck business, who work in the train business, and also the two-wheeler business are really passionate about electrification. It's a bit more complex to electrify those transportation modes, and you'll understand why later today. But before we deep dive into the topic, and before I introduce the panelists to you, I'd like to remind that towards the end of the session, we'll have about a 10-minute Q&A session where you can ask your questions. So I would suggest that you prepare your questions before the session and use the opportunity to ask anything you'd like to learn about the other transportation modes other than light vehicles and passenger cars. If not, I'll be happy to consume as much time as I get because I'm really passionate about these transportation modes. So with that, I'd like to introduce the first panelist to you, Rafał Muszyński. He is the CEO and founder of the Blitz Motors. It is a company which is aspiring to revolutionize the two-wheeler market. And please welcome to the scene. One interesting point about Rafał is that he was with the oil side of the business for about 5 years before moving on to the green side of transportation. So that's a good change. The next panelist is Kovács Karajol. He is the head of the Volvo Trucks division of the new business, the market director, and the eMobility department director. So one interesting topic, one interesting fact about Kovács, that he has been exposed to most truck departments or most trucks areas of interest. So if you look at sales, after sales, I think he has vast knowledge and experience in the trucking business. Next panelist is Ms. Adra Al-Mansouri, who is the head of economic research or economic policies at Etihad Rail. And she has had vast experience or vast exposure to different topics in the train, but not only train, but also aviation industry, mega projects, and the strategy development. The next panelist is Andrei Bolshakov. I'm not sure if Andrei is here. He's going to be able to join us. But Andre comes from a scientific background. He has been developing the unmanned robotic solutions for warehousing, for trucking applications, coming from that scientific department, scientific area. And then the next panelist is Nabil Nachi. He is the head of the Middle East and Africa New Business Department at Hyundai Motor Corporation. So, Nabil, welcome to the panel. One interesting fact that he was also with Mercedes-Benz trucks. So, very experienced, very rich trucking career in the past. So, if you have any questions about trucks, this is a great panel to ask. But not only about trucks. If you have questions about two-wheelers, if you have questions about trains, this is an amazing opportunity to ask you questions. So with that, I'd like to welcome you to the panel. It's my pleasure to be moderating the panel today. And before we deep dive into the discussion, I'd like to maybe set up the scene. If you look at passenger vehicles, if you look at light commercial vehicles, the discussion has been ongoing for the past 15 to 20 years. How do we electrify it? There are some best practices out there in other countries, here in the GCC. If you look at Europe, if you look at North America, there are some best practices which have been crystallized and developed and are providing some insights into what are the best options to electrify light vehicles and passenger cars. But if we move away from that passenger car area, if we deep dive into other sectors, and we have quite a few of them here, the number of solutions keeps increasing. So today, if you look at the products or if the solutions which the companies represented by the panelists are offered, the typical weight of a solution can range from somewhere about 80 kilograms for a fully electrified scooter up to 5,000 tons, if we're talking about a full cargo train on the railroad. So that's a huge range. That's a significant range of applications, and electrifying each one of them is a big challenge. If we look at some of the solutions available in the market, if we just focus on the trucking business, if I start listing the number of fuels, not only talking about electrification, but alternative fuels from LNG, CNG, bio-LNG, bio-CNG, the range just keeps increasing. But the purpose of the discussion today is to focus on the electrification options. There are a few elements, a few topics which have been already crystallized, and we'll focus on those later on. But the first question I'd like to start is, why are we looking at electrification of your particular application? So we'll start with Raphael. So what is the reason to electrify? What is the reason to look at electrification of two-wheelers? And how did you arrive at that topic?
Sure. So thank you very much. And nice to see you all this morning. So electrification, our business, so we manufacture and provide eMobility solutions with top-notch technology and right now two-wheeler. And 90% of our business is replacing fleets, gasoline fleets. I think if we look at our clients and our different use cases, it first of all comes at cost savings. That's really important for our clients, because in some countries they're conscious for the e-mobility, for green energy. In other countries they're not at all. And I think we see it here in the UAE that they're more and more becoming conscious, but that's not their top priority. So really cost saving first, then